We're taking a heavenly journey high above Viking territory. An eye in the sky perspective over the Nordic region, from Iceland and Greenland to the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. For 3 centuries, since the late 8th century, the Vikings raided and traded from their homes in southern Scandinavia. Those seafaring warriors explored a frozen part of our world. A land dominated by enormous glaciers. In Iceland, they encountered a land of volatile geographic wonders. From erupting volcanoes to geysers and hot springs, to the world's largest island, Greenland, they sail with pods of humpback whales to a land of deep fjords and an ice sheet up to 3 kilometres thick that covered 4/5 of the country. What's evolved since the days of the Vikings are a series of countries rich in cultural diversity and idiosyncratic delights, from herds of reindeers to frozen waterfalls. Every country with its own brand of wonders. There's Denmark with its grand castles, to Sweden with its snowy adventures, and Norway, a land of deep coastal fjords and peaceful lakes. In Svalbard, we'll join an expedition to watch polar bears feast on a whale carcass. In the Faroe Islands, we'll experience dramatic waterfalls as they cascade 30 metres into the sea. In Greenland, we'll track fishing boats as they plough through endless ice sheets. And in Iceland, we'll track long-haired horses, half wild, half tame, as they frolic freely in the spring. All of this bathed in winter with the universe's most glorious lights, the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. Come with us, let's fly up with the birds as we take in the wonders of a land where Vikings once roamed and pillaged. An eye in the sky perspective on the truly great Nordic wonders. It's been described as the land of ice and fire, Iceland. A land teeming with geographic wonders, starting with its sweeping glaciers and ice-filled waterfalls. A land so rugged that only 20% of it is populated. Giant ice caves formed by coastal glaciers and located on an island just south of the Arctic Circle. Iceland lies 1,200 kilometres northwest of Scotland. It's less than half the size of the United Kingdom. In winter, temperatures hover around freezing. But despite being so close to the North Pole, Iceland is warmed by the Gulf Stream, giving it a relatively mild temperate climate. This means the country is more livable for its 365,000 human inhabitants. Two-thirds of its population live in or around the capital, Reykjavik. Steam from the region's hot springs is said to have inspired Reykjavik's name, which loosely translates to Smoky Bay. At a latitude of 64 degrees north, Reykjavik is the world's northernmost capital of a sovereign state. Iceland's first permanent settlement was thought to be right here, almost 1,200 years ago, in 874. From the 13th century, Iceland came under first Norwegian, then Danish control, until 1918 when it declared independence, finally becoming a republic in 1944. Today, Iceland is amongst the cleanest, greenest and safest places in the world. It's also a leader in natural energy, with over 80% of its energy coming from renewable sources. There's one natural wonder that entertains and fascinates Icelanders: the heavenly northern lights, the aurora borealis. On a clear, crisp and dark night from September till March, Icelanders need only turn their gazes heavenward to catch this natural phenomenon, providing one of the most spectacular shows on Earth. As they dance across the northern sky, they've become one of Iceland's biggest winter attractions. But of course, they've inspired northern peoples since prehistoric times, appearing in Cro-Magnon cave drawings as early as 30,000 years BC. What you're looking at are gases emitted by solar activity, colliding with Earth's magnetic field. These electrically charged particles make the air shine. Due to the nature of the Earth's magnetic field, the auroras only appear at the Earth's poles, usually above the 60-degree latitude mark in the northern hemisphere. This makes Arctic Iceland, sitting at 64 degrees north, an ideal place to see the aurora and to take in the magnificence of this otherworldly phenomenon. While the northern aurora can be seen across northern Scandinavia, Russia and Canada, Iceland can top its northern neighbours for sightseeing splendour: the aurora and geysers. Iceland is home to some 600 hot springs and 29 geysers. The term geyser comes from Icelandic geysir, the name of a spring in Iceland, and translates to one who gushes. These gushing wonders have been linked to earthquakes. Iceland sits right on top of the North American and European tectonic plates, a position that increases Iceland's tectonic movement and is prone to earthquakes. While individual geysers can remain dormant for long periods of time, earthquakes can bring them back to life. Above the Earth's surface, their water is boiling hot and can be spewed up to 70 metres into the air. The same geothermal pressure that causes Iceland's geysers to erupt has also been harnessed for energy. Water 2,000 metres below the ground that is heated by this geothermal activity has been piped into most of the country's buildings for heating. As a result, most Icelanders don't pay to heat their houses or for the slightly sulphurous hot water, helping them to overcome the high costs of living in such isolation and cool temperatures. Iceland's ability to tap into these renewable energy sources means it's well positioned for a low carbon future. Iceland's geothermal base and its position on two tectonic plates means that it's home to many volcanoes. In all, there are some 200 volcanoes. Around 30 of those are still active. "13 have erupted since Iceland was settled 12 centuries ago, and one erupts on average every 4 years. Famously, in 2010, the eruption of one of Iceland's volcanoes halted air travel across Europe for 6 days, affecting some 10 million travellers. Thankfully, Icelanders' homes were safe, apart from the flooding caused by melting ice after the eruption. In this land of fire and ice, wildlife roams free. Take the reindeers. There are some 7,000 of them. They're not native to Iceland, having been introduced here through a royal Norwegian decree in the 18th century. 3 of the 4 big groups introduced perished, and reindeer farming failed. It was only this group in the region known as the East Fjords that survived, and hunting permits are now issued for some 1,200 animals every year. Then there are the Icelandic horses, well known and treasured. Norse settlers started bringing horses to Iceland in the 9th century, but Icelandic horses have become a breed unto themselves. They're half wild, half tame. Blessed with long shaggy tails and manes, Icelandic horses are a stocky but diminutive species. In summer, many of the horses are driven to northern Iceland, where they run free, grazing in the highlands and raising their young with no fences or human carers. Hundreds of horses running wild together, with 2 extra gaits compared with regular horse breeds. There are some 100,000 of these horses, 1/3 as many as the number of people on Iceland. They graze until late September, when they're rounded up, mostly by farmers who can recognise them by sight. But Icelandic horses are also culled, numbers kept in check to avoid exhausting the rich grasslands. The surf that pounds Iceland's coastline is being monitored in a series of scientific studies. Conducted by the Iceland Sea Ecosystem Project, it's been found the waters are not only warming, but they're getting saltier. It's into these warmer, saltier waters that humpback whales migrate. In summer, the whales complete a journey of 7,000 kilometres from the Gulf of Mexico, an incredible journey in which they've had to fight off pods of attacking orca whales. The humpbacks will swim from those waters for a month, relatively thin and hungry, and keen to start feasting in these rich Icelandic feeding grounds. In the following 9 months they feed on schooling fish such as sardines and cod, as well as krill that abound in Iceland's cold waters. Humpback whales are particularly intelligent and have come up with sophisticated techniques to work together to catch their prey. They're also famous for their singing, which consists of a collection of moans, clicks and snorts. What distinguishes Icelandic humpback whales from the rest are their white flippers, with unique patterns on their flukes, just like fingerprints. Their numbers are now steadily on the rise, with some 14,000 migrating here each year, back to the numbers thought to have been here before commercial hunting began. Another whale species common to Icelandic waters are the pilot whales. They're extremely sociable creatures. They travel in groups of 10 to 30, although more than 100 have been spotted in some pods. Mothers form strong and enduring bonds with their calves. These calves will nurse for more than 3 years, while these young pilot whales can drink their mother's milk for as long as 15 years. Data on pilot whale numbers around Iceland are not conclusive, but it's been estimated that there are as many as 750,000 of them living in Northern Hemisphere waters. Sadly, pilot whales are too often subject to mass strandings, with groups of 50 whales sighted beached on the Icelandic coastline. Scientists hypothesise that because of their strong social nature, one whale beaching may lead to an entire pod following. Thankfully, pilot whales are not considered to be endangered. Among Iceland's biggest features are its glaciers. They cover more than 10% of Iceland. And one of the most impressive of those glaciers is Svínafellsjökull, a 4-hour drive east of the capital. It's a colossal glacier, 8 kilometres long and around 800 metres wide. As large as it is, it's still dwarfed by the glacier it feeds from, Vatnajökull, the largest ice cap in Europe. Instead of a pristine snow-white appearance, much of the glacier is a series of mottled black, white and grey, the result of ice melting with black ash from volcanic eruptions long ago. As the glacier has melted, ice streams have formed. The formations they carve out are surreal. It's such a dramatic landscape that much of the popular TV series Game of Thrones was filmed around here. While you can't see it with the naked eye, all of these glaciers move. They slide, they glide, ever so slowly downhill to the coast. When they reach the sea, they carve slabs of ice in all kinds of shapes and sizes that break free and float out into the sea. It's an ever-moving ice show that motivates the more adventurous of locals and travellers to get out in amongst them. Boating of any kind is the best way to take in that experience, but kayaking is even more special. So close to the waterline, so close to the icebergs, and so close to nature at its rawest. Another searing Icelandic landscape, a stark scene, black and white, on the southern beaches of Iceland. Molten lava from volcanic eruptions has flowed into the sea. When the lava hits the water, an incredible transformation follows. the lava cools down so rapidly that sand, dust and smaller volcanic rocks are instantly created. Wave after wave of the white surf washes over the black sands while snowy white mountains stand behind. Iceland's river deltas turn on their own displays of striking colours. These rivers are relatively short. They originate in the beautiful ice-covered highlands. There are no settlements up these rivers. Navigation by boat is next to impossible. As the glaciers melt, formidable formations are created. This is a blue ice cave, an enormous cavern that's opened up in a slowly melting glacier. Where there are gaps in the snow above the ice cave, rays of sunlight create a vivid blueness in the ice. When more and more snow falls, the ice below compacts and compresses. It makes the ice crystals larger. With the right light, the ice takes on all shades of blue, from the deepest navy to turquoise and aqua. Such awe-inspiring beauty. One of the consequences of so much ice and snow in Iceland is that it melts, forming rivers that in turn drop over impressive waterfalls. One of the most impressive falls is Foss. Its waters cascading over a drop 44 metres high. It's thought to be the second most powerful waterfall in Europe, behind the Rhine Falls. Located in northeast Iceland, Foss carries water from a large area of the northeastern part of the country. Equally as impressive are the Gullfoss Falls. This is one of Iceland's most iconic and beloved waterfalls, a popular day drive from Reykjavik. The golden waters that have melted on the Leinjökull Glacier in southwestern Iceland cascade 32 metres over a series of tiered falls. It's hard to believe that Gullfoss was once privately owned and was set to be rented to foreign investors. These days it's back in the control of the government and is now well protected. One waterfall that showcases the dramatic differences between summer and winter is Seljalandsfoss. "60 metres of cascading splendour along Iceland's southern coast. In winter it's the standout feature in a crisp white landscape, blanketed by heavy snow. These glacial meltwaters are part of the Seljalands River, carrying the melted ice from a massive volcanic glacier. In summer, the once stark landscape is transformed. The ice has melted, and what emerges in the summer sunlight is a verdant green tapestry of grasses. The Seljelandsfoss waterfall offers visitors a unique experience. To walk behind the falling water and take in the majesty of its flow from another perspective. What the milkwaters flow into is a large pond, a natural storage basin, before completing their journey to the coast. The Seljelandsfoss waterfall, nature's wonder in all seasons, and the climax of our adventure high in the sky across Iceland. A deep history permeates every part of Denmark. Take the capital, Copenhagen. Ornate historic buildings abound. Evidence of a rich and well-preserved cultural heritage. What began as a Viking fishing village in the 11th century grew to become Denmark's highly sophisticated capital. Today, it's a regional centre of power with a population of just under 800,000. Of all the Scandinavian countries, Denmark is the most southern and smallest, being roughly the size of Italy, with almost 6 million inhabitants. People have been migrating here from the eastern and southern parts of Europe since the end of the last ice age, around 14,000 years ago. And what emerged were the Vikings. Denmark's vast array of waterways allowed Viking society to flourish. Its close proximity to the sea allowed Vikings to set off on raids, which gave them a reputation as bloodthirsty invaders and pillagers who plundered their way across Europe. But these brightly coloured houses that line the canals in Copenhagen's Nyhavn district were built in the 17th and 18th centuries, long after the Vikings had faded into history. These canals remind us that the Danish Vikings parked their ships and shelved their weapons, allowing Denmark to become one of the world's most peaceful societies. Today, the Danes are amongst the happiest people on earth, living in a peaceful and prosperous society that is not only seen as one of the most socially advanced countries, but is also ranked as one of the least corrupt countries in the world. One of Copenhagen's prominent landmarks is the Baroque Church of Our Saviour. Its spire has an external staircase that winds to the top, allowing people who've climbed all 400 steps panoramic views of Copenhagen. The spire is tipped by a 4-metre-tall figure of Jesus Christ, triumphantly carrying a banner. Between 8 a.m. and midnight, people nearby come to a standstill as they listen to music chimed by the 48 bronze bells that make up its carillon, the largest in Northern Europe. Scandinavia has a long and complex political history, with competing rulers vying to control each territory. Their claims are marked by Denmark's many castles, with some dating back to the 11th century. Of the 177 castles still standing or in ruins, this is the most famous. This is Kronborg Castle, which translates to Crown Castle, so named by King Frederick II. It was originally built by Danish King Erik of Pomerania in the 1420s to pair with the medieval Helsingborg Castle. Built on the opposite banks of a sound in the Baltic Sea, these two castles allowed the Crown to effectively control navigation and, of course, tax ships coming through each way. World-renowned as Elsinore, Kronborg was immortalised by William Shakespeare. It's here where he set Hamlet. Today, Kronborg Castle is a publicly owned museum and gives visitors an opportunity to imagine how Hamlet, the immortal Danish prince, may have lived. In the nearby city of Hillerød, King Frederick purchased an estate. He added extensions and turned it into a deer hunting lodge, modestly calling it Frederiksborg or Frederick's Castle. Frederick's son, King Christian, had the castle entirely rebuilt, work that had to be completed decades later in 1618, and these days is the largest Renaissance building in Scandinavia. It stands as a tribute to Denmark's royal family, one of the oldest in the world and still a popular institution with the Danes. Frederiksborg Castle, a classic Danish landmark, and now a museum showcasing 500 years of Danish history. Our eye and the sky cameras have travelled on to the adjoining Scandinavian kingdom of Sweden and its capital, Stockholm. Snow falling onto the city landmarks is a reminder of how this land of 10.5 million people was still covered by a thick ice cap only 14,000 years ago. As the ice retreated, people moved in, from Stone Age Paleolithic humans to the Vikings around the 8th century, and early Christians 300 years later. Established in 1553, Stockholm has been the capital of Sweden since 1634, a city of 1 million people living on a series of 14 islands lined with historic buildings. Unlike so many other European cities destroyed in the Second World War, Sweden's attempts to stay neutral throughout the war meant that its historic buildings, like the Nordic Museum, completed in 1907, were spared. One of the most impressive of those buildings is the Royal Palace. The royal residence has been located on this site since the 13th century. Fire destroyed the first medieval castle, known as Tre Krona, and rebuilding took almost 60 years. Today, Sweden remains a parliamentary constitutional monarchy, with the royal family headed by King Carl Gustaf, Sweden's longest reigning monarch, and Queen Sylvia performing ceremonial duties. This building still houses the royal court of Sweden, but is now owned by the Swedish state. With more than 600 rooms, the royal palace these days stages ceremonial marches watched by some of the 800,000 visitors who tour the palace every year. Another of Stockholm's fine buildings is the Clara Church, run these days by the Swedish Evangelical Mission. To give one an idea of Sweden's rich history, the convent and church of St Clair were founded on the site in the late 13th century. As a nunnery, it was run by women, a female branch of the Franciscans. By the 1880s, the church tower was added as part of restoration work, a spire 116 metres tall that takes predominance in the Stockholm skyline. This is Oscar's, a three-aisle church that holds 1,200 people. Oscar's church was named after King Oscar II, who laid the first foundation stone in 1897 to mark his 25th anniversary on the throne. One of the delights of Stockholm is the island of Kastelholmen. It's just across the water from the royal palace, connected to the rest of Stockholm by a small bridge. It has no residents. What is notable about Kastelholmen is that it has a stunning citadel. Known as Kastellet, the first fortification here was built in 1667. Used as a storage place for gunpowder, it exploded almost 180 years later and was left in ruins. Rebuilding began with the current tower completed in 1848. These days, a flag carrying the military ensign of Sweden is hoisted and later lowered every day, signifying that Sweden is at peace. One final Stockholm feature, the tethered sled. No reindeer in this park, rather a sled connected to a central post, a merry-go-round type invention that glides gracefully in Stockholm's snowy winters. Out of Stockholm, the Swedes' love of nature is richly rewarded with vast boreal forests. There are delightful national parks like Fullafjället in the centre of the country, given colour by its lichens and mosses. Its high plateau is gouged by several rivers and waterfalls. Then there's Ristafället. The mighty Ristafället waterfall is as powerful and dramatic as it is beautiful. Located in the west of Sweden, the fall spans some 50 metres, with a heavily timbered island splitting the river into two separate falls. The water drops 14 metres and creates its own microclimate, with rare lichens and mosses thriving here. Ristafället epitomises the Swedes' love of nature, an environment that has motivated and inspired climate change activists like Greta Thunberg. Today, Sweden has emerged from the Iron Age, the rule of the Vikings and war-hungry kings, into a land of reforms, a land so progressive that it's been rated as the best place in the world to grow old. The land of the midnight sun is producing an array of challenging experiences. This is a territory of extremes. In the winter of 2020, a record low temperature of -66 degrees was recorded at a summit station on the Greenland ice sheet. Contrast that to a balmy summer high of 8 degrees. Daylight is another commodity of extremes. In summer, the sun never sets. 24 hours of sunlight and twilight every day in June in Greenland. Compared with 4 hours of twilight in the depths of winter. The Nordic lands, once roamed by the Vikings, is indeed volatile. Volcanic eruptions, boiling geysers, grinding glaciers. This vast Nordic territory that stretches from the Scandinavian countries to Iceland and Greenland is one of outstanding natural beauty and cultures that are considered peaceful. Washed over in winter by the awesome light show that is the Aurora Borealis. A Nordic Council has been created, working towards creating the most sustainable and integrated regions in the world by 2030. Already the Nordic countries, all social democratic, are some of the world's most progressive on a range of issues. We'll explore more of those countries in the next episode of this series, Eye in the Sky Nordic Wonders. Greenland, a land of enormous glaciers and hardy fishing boats cutting through thick ice floes. Svalbard, as polar bears go on the hunt. The Faroe Islands, as gushing waterfalls cascade into the sea. And Norway, where ice climbers tackle frozen waterfalls. All ahead as we take to the heavens once again to marvel at the wonders, the true wonders of the Nordic territories.